12 Faces of Sober Speaks podcast, episode number 50. And I have a very, very special guest today. His name is Beau, a former draft pick of the Florida Marlins, now the Miami Marlins. But he also served in the Army as an infantryman. So thanks, Beau, for your service. But before we jump into this amazing interview, if you guys want to get the merch, 12facesofsober.com. That's where you can get a signed copy of 12 Faces of Sober. Not only that, you can see photos, almost like a timeline of, when I first started, getting sober and some of my travel adventures all the way up until current day. And not only that, you can shop the merch. I have hoodies, t-shirts. I have tights for women, workout shorts for women, coffee mugs, among other things. If you don't want to go the option of getting a signed copy of 12 Faces of Sober, you could jump on Amazon and type in 12 Faces of Sober. Also, my book became a bestseller on Amazon on February 22nd of this year. So big shouts out to those who supported 12 Faces of Sober and actually making that happen. So I really do appreciate it. And once again, like I said, today's guest is Beau. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have been following Beau, or we've been following each other since about April. His content is amazing. He shares his honesty, and it's very motivating for especially people like myself and others that are early in recovery and that are trying to really and truly make a difference in their lives. And so, Beau, welcome to 12 Faces of Sober Speaks podcast.
Yeah, man, Kenny, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad we finally could connect. I know we had a couple of times where we had, I had something going on, you had something going on, but man, I'm really happy to be here. First of all, hey, congratulations on your book. I didn't know, bestseller, man. That's big time. So
thank you.
Yeah, and I followed you. Like I said, we followed each other, and I feel the same way about you. So, man, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Now, before we dive in, I want to just ask, when is your sober day? Because I know we're almost around the same amount of time as far as having it under our belt.
Yeah.
So when exactly is your sober day?
I think you have about 2 weeks on me. I'm December 3rd, 2016.
Okay. Yeah. So I
remember seeing that. Remember mentioning it. Yeah, we're close. So yeah.
That's what's up. And congratulations to you on that. That is definitely a very high accomplishment. And like I said, but enough of that. Let's get to the backstory. Let's talk about where you're from. Fill the guests in or the viewers in with background on yourself, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, you got it, man. So. Just for the viewers, my name is Beau Payne. Last name is Payne, and I am right now living in Boise, Idaho, which is a lot of people mistake that for either Iowa or Ohio, but no, it's Idaho, and it's about 7 hours southeast of Seattle, or a few hours north of Salt Lake City. So in that area of the country, and I have been here I've been in Idaho back and forth from Seattle to Idaho for about 20 plus years. So anyways, Kenny, I'm just going to kind of go chronologically, how it all started back in the day, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, man, if that's all right with you. So I was born in Tennessee. Yeah, I was born about an hour outside of Memphis in West Tennessee in a town called Jackson. Okay. And I was born in 1973, so I'll be 49 in a couple months. And I just, kind of leading up to, there's a lot of things that happened in my childhood, I think, that were really instrumental in why I started to drink. And drugs are a big part of my story as well. I identify myself, as an alcoholic first and foremost, but I've had massive issues with drugs, all kinds of drugs, crack cocaine, intravenous, IV drug use, bad. I was just a gutter junkie and a gutter drunk for a long time. So I just kind of mixed it all in together. And, my earliest recollections, Kenny, of my household was just pure violence and dysfunctionality, man. It was just a crazy, dysfunctional, violent family. And it's funny because I come from a family outwardly that looks like they have their stuff together, you know. I don't know, just we just didn't look dysfunctional. But my father came back from Vietnam in 1970. He spent 2 tours over there, actually about a year and a half, tour and a half, and he was wounded and came back, I think, in late 69 or 70. I obviously wasn't born yet, but from what I understand, he came back a completely different man, which happened to, you know, many, many men and women who went to that war and other wars as well. So I'm not, you know, I want to preface this, Kenny, by saying what I'm going to share is I'm in no means a victim. I certainly don't live in victimhood, and I don't excuse things like that, you know, going to war or having things happen to you to perpetrate bad stuff on other people. I'm just kind of laying the ground for a little context of what happened. So my earliest kind of recollections after that, I guess, were 1977. So I'm 4 years old. My mom's pregnant with my daughter. And my daughter was with my, that sounded awful because I am from the South, with my little sister. And they're in the delivery room and my mom's in labor. And this is what I understand happened. And I recall a small bit of it is that my dad just up and says, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'm getting the hell out of here. I don't want to be around for this stuff." And my mother, as she's in labor, says, "Where are you going?" And he says, "I'm just leaving. I've seen women in Vietnam squat down and crap out babies in the rice paddies. Why should I stay around for this one?" And she says, "Because it's your child." You know, what kind of excuse is that? Please don't leave. And he ended up leaving and left us all. He left me, my mom. I was 4. My mom was, you know, in her late 20s, maybe 30, and my newborn sister. And my dad moved to Dallas, Texas. And so that was kind of the first bit of dysfunctional kind of stuff that I remember. So the next about a year and a half or so, I spent my time going from, I can't remember if we were in Memphis or New Orleans, I think Memphis, but from Memphis to Dallas and back and forth. It was just me, you know, going to see my dad back and forth. And it was just strange, Kenny. It was like being 5 years old and understanding how the airport system works, or understanding, you know, I remember learning how to navigate planes, getting to terminals by myself. You know, obviously they'd have a little chaperone to help me, you know, me being a young kid, but I distinctly remember this, looking at the bars in the airports and looking at the men and women who look so nice with business suits on, or the pretty women and the drinks in their hand, you know, the cocktails or whatever, and the music. And I remember being 5 years old, looking at this, just being fascinated by it. Just like, wow, that is something that I want. And you know, that's too young for a kid, A, to kind of understand how to navigate, you know, some of the biggest airports in the world pretty much on my own, and B, looking at airport lounges and bars and just, you know, so I was introduced to that kind of stuff being on my own, an independent little kid at an early age. So nothing really bad happened with my father and I during that time. My parents reconnected and got back together for some reason. You know, my mom is one of my best, I spoke to her this morning. She's one of my best friends in the world. She lives in Boulder, Colorado. She's grandmother to my kids, my sister's kids. My sister's the head basketball coach at the University of Colorado women's team in Boulder. So we come from a long line of athletes in our family, which is cool. And so anyways, to backtrack, my parents remarried, and to this day, we don't understand why, and who knows, it doesn't matter. So we all packed up. My dad has a MBA, a master's degree from Vanderbilt. My mom has a doctorate from Tulane in New Orleans. And so I come from an educated family. I am a high school dropout with a GED from a state penitentiary. So that kind of shows you that it doesn't matter, you know, what you look like or where you're from or what, you know, what kind of socioeconomic background you come up with, man. Addiction and alcoholism can happen to anybody. So I didn't turn out, I think now I turned out the way I was supposed to. Okay. And, you know, pushing 6 years like you since I've had a drink or a drug, but so that's a little bit. So we ended up packing up and moving to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, because my dad got a job. He was a businessman. And this is when stuff really started going haywire for me. I was a real good athlete at a young age. I was eventually, you know, offered, a couple of contracts by the Brewers, the Rangers. I was drafted by the Marlins, and I'll get to that briefly. And that's a platform for me to kind of share my stuff. I'm not a big, pat me on the back type of guy. I'm not that at all. Because I really wasted all my talent. I was a first round talent, but 70th round draft pedigree. So we got up, and my dad was always the coach in all my teams, Little League baseball, Pop Warner or flag football. Up in Canada, we skated. He didn't coach our hockey stuff, but we played pond hockey, which was a lot of fun. Soccer, basketball, all the stuff. And I was generally the best player on the team. And look, man, I understand that your dad has high expectations for us as young men or even young women, playing sports. But the things that he did to me back then, he'd be doing life in prison if it was 2022. And I don't say that again, like I said, as I think it's possible for children and adults even to be victimized. But once I got out of that victim mindset and said, look, I can't change the past. I can't go back and alter it and make things different. All I can do is change my mindset about it, do a lot of work on it and what happened, and then move forward, and live day by day. And I've gotten to the point where I've forgiven him for a lot of things. We haven't spoken in about 15 years, but I forgave him. And I'll get to a couple incidences. I want to really talk real quickly. I ended up forgiving my dad for the things he did to me, not so much because I think they're forgivable things. I had to forgive him because I can't walk around with hate in my heart, man. I can't hate anybody. I can't have resentments against people. It's going to lead me out to drink, and that's the last thing that I ever want to do. So backtracking to me being probably 7, 8 years old, playing flag football, t-ball, getting into minor league, the small baseball and all that stuff, pee-wee and all that kind of jazz. I'll give you a couple instances, Kenny. I'd go 4 for 5 with maybe 2 home runs, two doubles, 5 RBIs, having a great game. I'm on the mound, I'm throwing a one-hitter, and I struck out my last at bat. So I would have the holy hell beat out of me for that strikeout. I mean, punches, he'd never punch me in the face, but he'd throw me up against walls, spit in my face, and kick me and punch me in my legs and my stomach and throw me down. And that was fine. It wasn't fine, but I got used to the physical stuff all the time because that became the norm. What I didn't ever get used to, and what I didn't realize until decades later, Kenny, is that the emotional toll of the words that he said to me absolutely destroyed me. And his thing was always, you embarrassed me. You embarrassed me so much. You embarrassed me in front of the family. You embarrassed me as in my dad, my father. You embarrassed me in front of the people in the stands. And I'm thinking, like, there's like 18 people in the stands, dude. This isn't, Fenway Park, man, or the Boston Garden. Just chill out, man. I'm 9 years old. Why are you doing this to me, bro? But little did I know that looking back on things, and I've been to VA psychiatrists, done a lot of work. Look, my program of recovery is Alcoholics Anonymous. I work a 12-step program. I never push that on people if I do an interview or a podcast. I just all I can do is what saved my life and given me a life. But having said that, I'm all inclusive to anybody's program of recovery, whatever it is, whatever it looks like. I'm from the camp of, hey, man, if it's working for you, stick with it. Whether that's AA or something else, man. If you're getting better by doing what you're doing and you're not hurting other people, man, don't change it. Right. So I did a lot of work, through 12-step work and really taking deep looks into things and why things happen and trying to find my part in a lot of stuff. And I was able to come to some good conclusions and really rid myself of a lot of hate, which was really important for me to be able to move forward in life. Because if I am full of hate and anger towards people, then I'm useless to other people, man. And I love helping people, and I love sharing my story with folks and letting them know that redemption is possible and you can get clean and sober and you can have a life. And it doesn't matter if you're 20, 40, 60, 80, whatever, man, you can start again. So the violent abuse, and I'll give you another story, Kenny, and then I'll kind of move on from, the war stories. I'm not real big on that kind of stuff, but this was a really kind of a particularly bad one. So I was playing hoops. I was in the 6th grade. I was probably 11 years old, 12 years old, something like that. And I was a real good basketball player, man. Like, that was my sport, even over baseball growing up. I was always taller, and I'm 6'4" now, but I've been 6'4" since I was 15. I didn't grow after I was 15, which kind of bugged me because I thought I'd be like 6'7", 6'8", but so I was working on some spin moves and I'm a big Celtics fan, everything Boston. So Larry Bird was my hero. And I wanted to play like Larry Bird. And of course, there's been maybe 5 players in the history of the world that can play like Larry Bird, and I'm not one of them. You know, and but I'm out there as a little kid trying these spin moves and shooting long threes and doing this kind of stuff. And I'm having I turned the ball over a few times. You know, I just wasn't playing well. So my dad grabs me and this is 1985. It couldn't be any longer or any, yeah, it was 1985 actually. And so I think we're around the same age, you know, roughly. And you remember those just old, nasty gas station bathrooms, man, with the trough where everyone stands up and pees in, and it just nasty, you know. And and he takes me in and he shuts the door and he locks the door and he throws me up against the glass mirror or whatever. It's not even really glass, you know, just some reflection, and slaps me. He never punched me with his fist in my face, but he'd slap me and he split my lip right off the bat. I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. You know, it's halftime of the game. And he opens the stall door. He says, "Get on your effing knees." And I'm like, "Yes, sir, fine." And he starts grabbing my hair and dunking it in the toilet and flushing the toilet. And man, there's, you know, not to get too graphic on your show, man, but there's like fecal matter in there and urine and those little blue urinal cakes. And he kept doing it like 6, 7 times. And he'd pull me up, you know, I'm soaking wet and I'm trying to breathe and I'm choking on the water and I stink because of all the stuff in there. And he's like, "You ever going to do this to me again?" And it was always like, "You're doing this to me. You're embarrassing me. You're doing," and I'm like, man, in the moment, you know, I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to breathe. So he pulls me up and he's like, "Okay, look, I'm sorry. I went a little overboard." And in my head, I'm like, just a little bit. And tried to clean me up. And I still, to this day, it's so vivid, Kenny. I had an orange basketball uniform on. That was the color of my little grade school. It was orange. It was Maplewood grade elementary school. And I had the stains on me of those blue, like I was saying, those blue urinal cakes that they put in the toilets, you know, and so I had this blue all over me, running down like a makeup, like eyeshadow would run on somebody wearing makeup, you know. And it just, and my hair was wet and my lip was bloodied, and cleaned me up, went across the street. Man, I probably had like 18, 20, 22 in the second half, you know, because I damn sure wasn't going to screw up anymore. I just stuck to, you know, what I knew how to do is score and pass and score and rebound. I wasn't trying all this fancy stuff. It was, you know, kind of getting me in trouble. And those are the kind of things that happened to me as a kid. There's, you know, a million more stories like that. They're just the same. And I'm not going to get into them because, you know, you tell one, you can tell them all. But what I want to say, Kenny, is that kind of abuse for me, and I think this happens with children all over the world, not just the United States, not, you know, all over the world in any community, you know, poor, rich, in between. That kind of stuff destroys people for long, long time. The mental stuff, the physical stuff, I learned to deal with because I got tough at an early age. And the physical stuff kind of ended when I was about 14 or so. But the verbal stuff lasted for decades, man. I just felt so miserable. I became suicidal at a very young age. I never attempted suicide at a young age. I did later on in life. But I just remember going to bed at night, asking God to take me, not to wake up in the morning. Like, "God, please just take me and just get me off this earth. I can't deal with this anymore." And I would just cry myself to sleep. And I had no self-confidence, and I had no self-worth, self-esteem, whatever word you want to put to it. I had, you know, I couldn't do anything. I was crippled by fear, man. I hated sports at the time, which no little kid who's an athlete. I know you played football, right? High school football. And I think you talked about it. And even if you're a sports fan or not, you know, or not, whatever you're interested in, it shouldn't be taken or robbed from you as a child. You know, that should be something you love to do, and you shouldn't have to play it or live in fear all the time. So I kind of feel like that my childhood was robbed from me, which is fine. You know, everything has led me to where I am now, and it's been years of real good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff to come. So that leads me to my first drink. Actually, my first drug was marijuana and LSD when I was 11 years old. And, you know, I smoked the weed. I remember, you know, I remember the first time on LSD was just weird. I'm not even going to go there, but it was just crazy. But when I smoked the weed, I felt different. And I felt like I kind of belonged, for the first time in my life. And then a year later, I remember I was 12 years old in the midst of a lot of this dysfunctionality. My parents divorced again for good because my dad was cheating on her all the time and just was verbally abusive to everybody. And he was a liar and a manipulator and just all this stuff. And I'm not here to trash him. I'm just, like I said, laying some groundwork or some context for what happened. So the first time that I drank, Kenny, was I still remember it like it was yesterday. And it was one of the greatest days of my life because I had finally had those like metaphorical shackles taken off me, and when I say metaphorical shackles, I mean like of crippling anxiety, of being scared all the time. I couldn't talk to girls. I couldn't even, I thought my jokes were funnier. I thought I was better looking. I thought I was a better athlete. I thought I was better at everything when I was drinking, man. I felt like I arrived on the scene, man. Like I can do no wrong. Everything washed off me, all the fear, all the hurt, all the anxiety, all the skin. And so I kept drinking and drinking on a daily basis at a young age just to escape everything that was going on, A, in my head, like in between my ears. And then B, just, all the just being scared to death of my own shadow, really. And even worse than that was just thinking that I'm an absolute worthless, POS, just a piece of, what. And so that was in a scheme, man. And so the problem is that I'm alcoholic and I liked it. First night I ever drank when I was 12 years old, I threw up all over the place. I was sick. I was a little kid. I threw up all night. I passed out in a pile of vomit in the bathroom. And all I can remember is kind of coming to. And the first thing that came to my mind was, when can I do this again? As I'm just, yeah. I mean, it makes no sense. You know what I mean? It makes no sense. And so all I could think about was, drinking and doing drugs to escape. And then, like I said, I liked it. And it was just a perfect storm of just awfulness. And there was an incident, where we were getting some weed in downtown Vancouver. Vancouver's a beautiful part of the country, British Columbia, but it's like any big city. It's got some real, undertones and nastiness and drugs, alcohol, prostitution, all that, just gang activity and all that kind of stuff. It's got as much as any other place. And so and I'll tell this and I'll move on. So I'm with my buddies and we're looking to get some weed and we're in the wrong area of town. We look out a place and dude comes up and says, "Hey, what are y'all looking for?" I said, "Yes, we're looking for some marijuana. We wanted an eighth or something." He says, "Follow me." And I'm kind of hesitant about it, but I do. And I follow him up to this dingy old apartment building. It's above some porn shop or something, in the nasty areas of town, downtown. And we go down the hallway, and it's one of those apartment buildings where they have one bathroom per floor, so it's nasty, it's not nice. And there's a tiny little room in the back, and there's a dude sitting on his couch, and I don't think I'd turned 15 yet at the time. He says, "Wait here," goes in, he says, "I'll get you weed, pay me the whatever." It was like $40 or something. And I'm thinking, fine, just give me this stuff and let's get the hell out of here, man, because this is bad scene. The dude on the couch, I'm sitting by, and granted, I'm, young kid. These are older men, probably in their 30s. Says, "Hey, you want a shot of whiskey?" I say, "Sure." So I take a shot of whiskey. We'd already been drinking a little bit. And so I was buzzed up and I'm waiting on the guy. The guy comes out of the room and he looks at his partner and he looks at me and he asked me if I'd ever tried heroin. And I said, "No, I've never even seen it. I know what it is. I've never seen it, never tried it." He says, "Would you like to?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Sure, why not?" It just kind of was how I was back then. I would, just kind of do anything. And some unfortunate things happened from that night. The guy fixed it up and then tied me off and shot it in my arm. And I'd never felt like anything like that in my life. And it turned out that both of those men sexually assaulted and raped me that evening.
Oh, man.
And it was a really horrible experience. Yeah, and I sometimes I'm kind of reticent to share these things. Not, I don't care about it because I've dealt with a lot of it, but on a show or an interview or something, I don't want to turn anybody off, but unfortunately that's reality that happens to a lot of people. And a lot of people are, won't talk about it. And I didn't talk about it for a long time. Here's the problem though, Kenny, is that as bad as that night was, what happened to me, to this day, as I sit here and talk to you, what I remember most about that night is how it felt when that needle went into my arm and how good it made me feel. So that's how powerful addiction and alcoholism and all those things are, you know. So that led to me living this double life of trying to, you know, I kind of got my father out of my life with the divorce with my mom, me trying baseball together. I ended up moving to Miami, Florida a year later when I was 16 to continue playing ball. And I was getting noticed as a national, you know, baseball prospect. And I was real good, man. I mean, I was, you know, I got to Miami, had a couple years left, junior year. But Miami, Florida in 1989 is not a great place for an already, you know, cocaine addicted, methamphetamine addicted alcoholic and other things. And so I got right into that culture right away. Always talk to people, and I would always have this ability to kind of fit in with anybody. And I think I learned that, how to do that, because I think it was kind of a survival mode that I learned how to do when I was younger, you know, just to change faces real quick, you know, to wherever I am. And, you know, I got in with the wrong people. I played really well, you know, for my first year. And, you know, and I had these stacks of letters all the time, you know, LSU, Tennessee, University of Miami, Florida, Florida State, LSU, Georgia, Arkansas, all big, you know, SEC schools, you know, in the 11th grade saying, hey, sign early, commit to us, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to play the University of Miami. And at that time, going into my senior year, I was projected as no later than a third round pick and maybe even a late first round pick. And back then, Kenny, that's 250 grand signing bonus right there. That's a ton of money for, you know, a 17-year-old kid coming out of, you know, playing baseball. It's not like, you know, football and massive contract. Well, I guess it is kind of now, but, and what happened was I flunked out of school. I was doing a little drug deal. I wasn't doing it. I was getting marijuana in a place called Coconut Grove, which is just a little suburb in Miami. And from the same guys, man, that we always went to. And this guy comes up and rolls down the window, and I recognize him. And in Miami, back when in the late 80s, early 90s, we all wore a bunch of gold and we all thought we were cool and all this, you know, and Fila jackets and the whole nine, you know. And anyways, he comes up, and then his buddy rolls up, and they got little BMX bikes. And said, what y'all need? And said, we want some marijuana. Said, sure, no problem. Next thing I know, dude reaches in and grabs my gold chain and puts a knife to my throat like that. And then his partner puts a gun to my head. And I just still remember him going, don't fight it, don't fight it, don't fight it. I'm like, I ain't fighting anything, man, just take it. So all they did, that was just for the gold chain. They just ripped the chain off my neck and split. And I ended up getting in trouble for some other things, you know. It's just crazy. I just was out of control. So I flunked out of school. I lost my draft status where I wasn't eligible to be drafted. And scouts at this time were starting to see that I had other issues. I had other stuff going on besides baseball. So I went back to Vancouver, BC with my mom briefly. And then I went to a JUCO, junior college in California, trying to resurrect my career. And I played well. Ended up becoming academically ineligible again. I would have had to sit out a year. The Brewers offered me a small free agent contract, a little bit of money. I turned it down because I needed arm surgery. I've had 5 rotator cuff surgeries. So I had a minor arthroscopic, got better, transferred to a school in Seattle, Washington, and ended up, you know, I'd be a guy, Kenny, who'd throw 93, 94 on the radar gun one day on one start. And then 6 days later, when I have to start again, I wouldn't even be touching 82 miles an hour on the radar. Scouts were like, why is this guy, he's unshaven, he stinks like booze, he's fat, he's overweight. I don't mean to say that word to shame people or whatever, but, you know, I was out of shape. He's like, why is this guy? And then he's throwing 82 miles an hour on the radar gun. When last week, dude was looking good. He was bright eyed. Guy was blowing guys away, 83 or 93, 94 on the gun. It's like any company, you know. Amazon, Microsoft, Yahoo, IBM, Major League Baseball teams. They don't want to invest money in people that are going to be drunk all the time. And at that time, I already had a criminal record for some things, you know, just possession, battery, stuff like that, just drunken stuff. And I ended up being a late round draft pick by the Marlins. I went from probably getting about 200 grand signing bonus out of high school to being offered, I think, about $3,200 or something, and a mesh, one of those mesh trucker hats that said Florida Marlins on it. This is, like you said, before they changed their name to Miami Marlins. I needed another rotator cuff surgery. The last game I ever threw, I threw really well, but I knew I was done because I couldn't lift my arm, above my shoulder, above my head. So I had the surgery and I enlisted in the Army, and went from there. And I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. Went to airborne school after basic and AIT, and then I got stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st. And I had my son there with my girlfriend. He's turned out to be a wonderful kid. He still lives down in Clarksville, Tennessee. And then I got transferred to what do they call it? PCS, Permanent Change of Station. Up to Alaska. So that kind of put a crimp in things because my girlfriend at the time was pregnant with my son, and I had to go to Alaska. They gave me the choice of either Korea or Alaska, and I said, I'll go to Alaska. And you've been in the Army. I'm not sure how it is, a little bit later on, but when I was in back in the mid to late 90s, it was just a drinking culture from hell, man. I mean, we just drank. And we were grunts, man. So we were proud of it. We were kind of arrogant. And I think arrogance, man, is just the worst, quality ever. I can't say it. But I was a very insecure young man back then who still carried all that guilt and shame and hate for myself. So arrogance was a way that I covered up all that stuff, as well as drinking. So we drank every day if we weren't on deployment. And when we were back from wherever we were, whether it was training in the field for 60 or 90 days or somewhere else around, the first thing we do is we, clean our weapons, turn them into the armory, and then we'd go get drunk.
Yep.
And
that's the story. That's the story.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Because you can't wait. Maybe you're tired. You think about it. You take a few hours nap, clean your weapons, get them in, take a nap, then start drinking. And and that's it. That became my life, man. And they asked me to re-up when I was in Alaska, re-enlist. I said no, I can't. And then I got in some trouble up there. I was in Fairbanks, Alaska, which is the Wild West, man. I mean, it's the absolute Wild West. And I ended up getting out of the Army, not re-enlisting, and moved back to Nashville because my son was born and he was about 6 months old at the time. Tried to make that work and it didn't work because I just couldn't stop drinking every single day. And so I moved back to my mom's in Vancouver, BC, tried to get a new start on things. This would have been age 24 or so. And I went to a big national baseball powerhouse called Lewis Clark State College. It's an NAI school, a smaller school. But they put a bunch of guys in the big leagues through there. I knew the head coach. His name was Ed Sheff, who just passed away a few months ago. He was a fantastic coach, one of the greatest baseball guys this country ever had. And he said, come here, we can't give you a scholarship, to your background. You're older than these guys. He said, but I know who you are. I know what you once were. If you can do it again, we'll give you a scholarship. So walk on, play, prove to us. And oh man, we got this.
Hold on. Yeah, let's pause it right here, and then we'll jump back in. I'll send you another link. Just hold tight.
Okay. All right.